Welcome to the Marketing Mortgages Social for Brokers podcast. Today, we're discussing something that has been talked about a lot recently, something that could ultimately change the entire landscape of the mortgage industry, and that's artificial intelligence. Now, it's a really complicated subject, and that's why I'm not tackling it on my own. I've drafted in one of the experts, John Pitton from Carmen Digital, and I got to know John because he was recently on the expert panel with myself on the Accord Mortgages Growth Series webinar. If anybody tuned into that, I've had loads of messages, and I'm sure John has as well, from people that found a lot of value from that. So if you do want the link to that, drop me a message and I'll send it across to you. But on that webinar, he covered some great points, and I just knew I had to get him on here and talk about what he thinks mortgage brokers have to look forward to when it comes to the integration of AI in their businesses. And is it a threat or is it going to help? So we're going to delve into all that good stuff today. But John, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Chris. Delighted to be here. Thanks for having me on.
That's no problem at all. I was sat there listening to you on the Accord because we were sat there doing the recording, and I was thinking, this is the kind of thing I need on our podcast. So thank you for taking your time and jumping on today. Before we get into it, I like to give a bit of a background as to who you are and what you do. So if you could give us a bit of a summary of who you are, John, and what company you work for and how you help mortgage brokers.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so I guess my background, 25 plus years in financial services, both on the advisor side, but also on the distribution side. And then we founded an agency called Clients First about 12 years ago now. And now we've just merged with another agency we founded called Carmen Digital. And Carmen Digital is the agency that we are growing with, I guess, going forward. And that's now the brand that we operate under. And I guess that we help financial services businesses unleash the power of digital. That's the kind of way we look at it, through something called revenue operations, which is kind of connecting sales and marketing with the client experience, and then also with digital engagement. So we do things like build websites and digital user journeys and digital content, etc. So that's kind of what we do. And we work with brokers, and we work with lenders, and we work with providers, investment houses, etc. So across the piece, really.
Oh,
And
right.
it's exciting times with AI on the, I was going to say on the horizon. It's not. It's very firmly with us.
It is. I mean, it's been around for years. We're going to get into that, but it just seems to be over the last 12 to 24 months, it's exploded. And the magic word at the minute is ChatGPT. But we'll get into that in a moment. I didn't realise you were in financial services yourself before you went into the digital space.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career with Friends Provident back in 1997, selling income protection, actually through brokers.
Okay.
So I was a broker consultant. If anyone's listening understands the old world of providers and lenders, etc. Yeah, I was a broker consultant in Croydon, which is where I started my career many moons ago.
Right. And then what made you make that switch into the digital world opposed to going into marketing rather than going down the FS route?
Yeah, so I guess, so I've always been involved in business development. We moved up to the northwest of the UK. I sort of ran the northwest for Friends Provident, and then I switched to an advisory business, became director of an IFA business, and then after about 4 years came out of there to set up my own business, and that was the digital agency. That was Clients First originally. Originally, that was all about helping brokers and advisors communicate better with their clients. So we were doing a lot of email marketing, email newsletter, e-coms, etc. That's how the business started back in, gosh, what year was that? 2009, I think it was. Yeah, 2009.
Okay, great. So it's great to get a background of what you did in the FS world and then going into the digital world. Obviously, we're going to fast forward now to the day when AI started to come into fruition. So when did you start using AI? And for anybody listening, AI is short for artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I guess as an individual and partly as a business, I guess we probably started about 4 years ago. I guess sort of that's when we started really coming across it. Now, AI has been around. It's a part of data science. Data science has been around really since the 60s, and it's just evolved over time. But I think there's been some real catalysts to that recently, particularly the advances in computing power. So really for us, we started properly about 4 years ago, but it's just so integrated into our business. Everybody is using it on a day-to-day basis for all sorts of things. So yeah, that's kind of our journey, and certainly without question that a big catalyst to our use, but also the understanding of our clients' use of AI was OpenAI launching ChatGPT.
Yeah.
That kind of completely broke it out into the mainstream. Because before that, the likes of Google and Meta with Llama, etc., had AI, but they just hadn't launched it. It was behind the scenes, and they'd kept it to themselves, arguably. And of course, they had to play catch up as soon as OpenAI launched ChatGPT.
Do you think that they did that? I always use the analogy. I remember reading a story that when the floppy disk was invented, everybody was using the floppy disk, and a year or so later, they then invented the CD, but they kept it under wraps for so many years because they wanted to make the most out of floppy disks. Do you think some of these companies held back AI to try and make the most out of the software that they currently had? Do you think there was maybe something in that?
I'm not so sure it's that. I think they were probably a lot more conservative about launching anything without thoroughly testing. When we
Oh, okay.
saw ChatGPT come out, there's always talk, and there still is around, AI hallucinates and it doesn't answer things correctly sometimes. And we all saw images created that were inappropriate or whatever. And that's because OpenAI came to market really quickly. In a traditional product development world, those products would have been tested and tested and tested before launching to the public, and they couldn't be because Google had to launch quickly, Meta had to launch quickly, probably far quicker than they wanted to, because OpenAI took a pretty ballsy decision really, and going, right, let's take this to market, and they did. So they completely created the market for AI as we know it today in relation to the large language models.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting to see. It's a good point. They almost put it out there to be the leaders. And if we talk about OpenAI in this podcast, it's essentially ChatGPT is a product of OpenAI, isn't it? So if you hear us talking about OpenAI, it's like the owner of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So we're going to, a bit further along in the podcast, we're going to give you, or John's going to give you, a few tools that you can use as a mortgage broker to start getting used to AI. But what do you do involving AI in your business at the minute, John? Can you give us some examples of how you use AI, whether it's running your business or running other people's businesses for them?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess we use AI in many ways, actually. So if you think about our developers, our developers use AI to test code, to create code, to develop code, etc. So that fundamentally that's a really good use case for us. We also use AI to develop strategy and planning. You can ask AI any question you like, and it will throw back an answer. So you can ask it to develop a comms strategy or customer experience or client experience strategy, whatever it might be. So we use it in that regard. We're starting to use it for image creation now. That's pretty common for us. And what we're finding, and I think this is what a lot of business finding, is a lot of the AI tools we're using, and those tools are actually being embedded into software. So, we're a HubSpot partner. We do a lot of work with HubSpot. They are leaning very heavily into AI, and to the point that if we're building out automated workflows within HubSpot for a client, and we want to create a description of what that workflow does, you just press the AI button, and the AI button will write the description for you.
Yeah.
If you're creating a piece of content and you want to think about remixing that for social platforms, the kind of stuff you guys do, etc., then you press a button and it remixes it for social platforms. You still need to cast a human eye over this stuff, but the AI tools are being embedded into software, and I think interestingly that's where we kind of help clients choose software they're using, and we would always recommend to buy software that is starting to use AI, but then also thinking about how they can use AI in day-to-day processes and process automation. A big play, I guess, in this sector is chatbots. not chatbots that are built on algorithms and yes, no answers, etc., and logic, but those that are built on AI and trained on the data or the information on the client's website. So, take a big mortgage lender, for example, that chatbot is trained on their FAQs and their knowledge base, and therefore you can have an open conversation with the AI about rates or about underwriting, etc., etc. That's where it's all going, and client
Yeah.
experience is at the heart of the use of AI for sure.
I've seen that done more and more, speaking to more and more mortgage companies that are almost feeding the AI model with all of their information about, for example, their HR handbooks. They load it up with that. And then the staff, instead of going to a HR person saying, right, what is the maternity policy? You can just type in a box, what's the maternity policy? And it pulls that bit of information.
Yeah,
It's essentially like a Google search of your
yeah,
document. And
yeah,
that's an interesting one, actually, because ChatGPT has just started to search the web, hasn't it?
yeah.
Whereas the likes of, there's something called Perplexity, isn't it? That is real time search on the web. Do you use any of those real time search pieces
You've
of
stolen my
software?
thunder. Perplexity is one of my favorite tools.
Oh,
So,
is it? Okay.
for me, I use Perplexity on my Android phone more than I use Google, and I just talk to it. I talk to Perplexity.
Yeah.
And the great thing about Perplexity, and it is one of my list of tools that I think brokers should be
Sorry, I've jumped the
considering.
gun here,
No, no,
guys.
no, good, good. I'm pleased it's out there. Is that it also throws up the sources, and then it has follow up questions. If you ask a question, because I think that a lot of the use of AI, and of course, at the moment, we're talking a lot about large language models. We're not talking about, the AI of deep learning and driverless cars and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But one of the really important points about AI is the ability to delve further than that first response. So this idea of prompt engineering, and I think, brokers thinking about AI, and a lot of the conversations we have with clients around use of AI is to really help get their people understanding how to optimize conversations with AI to get the most out of it. Don't take that first answer. Try to add more context. Try to develop the answers from the AI tools so that you get really rich responses as opposed to that first one. And I think Perplexity is really good at that because it throws up follow-up questions after you've asked the first prompt.
And that's so prompt engineering for anybody listening is essentially just learning how to speak to the likes of ChatGPT, isn't it?
Yeah,
Perfect example is if we wanted to write a social media post, you could pop in, write a social media post about first time buyer mortgages, and it will give you a response. But if you were to write down and say something like, write me a social media post for first time buyers. Please make it jargon free. Make sure that it's understandable. We're a friendly, creative mortgage broker that offers straightforward advice. You would get a much better output from an AI model, wouldn't you?
yeah, you would. Yeah, and if you're a regional broker, add in and add some local context. We're based in Manchester or we're based in London. And it will start to
Mhm.
enrich the response so that it becomes far more relevant to you. I think that the bit I think about AI, and you mentioned earlier about where we were talking offline about the need for the human involvement and brokers, people by people. That's what it's all about. For me,
Mhm.
there's a real opportunity to use AI so long as the prompting and the development of the answers, almost are an extension of your own thinking. I mean, that's the key. Is you might have the
Yeah.
idea, you might have, and actually using AI to develop that quicker and faster than you could anyway is, I think, where the real value comes in AI. So it still has the personality, it still has your thinking at the heart of it all, but it just helps you generate content, if it is content indeed, quicker.
Yeah. And we'll get into content as well shortly. When so say I'm a mortgage broker and I'm getting into AI, the first thing I'd say, what would you say is let's look at your favorite platforms to start with. What would you say are your favorite platforms?
So we like the standard, what I'll call LLMs, large language models like ChatGPT.
Hmm.
And most of our team have the paid version, because you can, obviously put your profile into that. So if people don't know, you can tell ChatGPT that you're a mortgage broker and you're based wherever you're based and the type of clients you deal with, et cetera, et cetera. and how you like responses. So that almost, it learns from that, and then it provides context. It uses that as context for a response it might give to you. So we like ChatGPT. You can also create GPTs. I don't know if you've tried to create GPTs. So creating GPTs is really nice because actually it's further framing around responding, and you can use that GPT to give far better responses specifically around certain areas, etc. We do a lot of, just an example for us is we do a lot of things called user stories when we are developing CRM platforms or deploying HubSpot actually, or building websites, etc. What is the user story? We've got a GPT that's trained to give us responses in a framing of user stories, so we can start to talk about what is the user story for this website? Well, I'm a 50-year-old looking to remortgage for the last time. This is what I'm looking for, and the user story can be created by the GPT, which makes it far more relevant for us, and it's quicker to do it that way. So definitely ChatGPT we like. Perplexity we've just talked about. We like Perplexity. We also use Claude. So Claude.ai is Anthropic's large language model. What people will find, there's probably about, 10 to 15 dominant large language models. Meta has Llama, for example. And actually using 2 or 3 of those is quite good to get used to using 2 or 3. Because one thing we sometimes do, and I did this the other day, is I got a response from ChatGPT. I then put that response into Claude and said, can you validate this response that's been provided by another AI tool? Is this accurate? And would you add anything to it? And of course, it then takes that response, it develops it further. But they have different learning mechanisms, if you like. So you're starting to use hybrid of tools, if you like, to try and get better responses. Depends how deep your response goes. So I do like using 2 or 3 different models. So I'd probably bookmark 4 different large language models. So they're really nice tools.
Those are the ones you'd start. Which one do you think is going to win out of those between?
I think they're going to win for different things. So if you look at Anthropic now, that's really good. It's now got, I can't remember the name now. I want to say articles. It's not, where you can actually, it can create apps. So it can create apps. So if you wanted it to create a mortgage calculator to go on your website, it could create a mortgage calculator, and you will just talk to it or input in to create that mortgage calculator. So I like that, and I think that'll possibly develop and win in that area. ChatGPT, I know, talking to our devs, is very good with logic and code, so they quite like that. But there'll be new tools that come to market. One of the things that's quite interesting is that Llama, which is Meta's model, is open source. That means you can grab the actual underlying code of Llama and use that to develop your own models. So that makes it really interesting where you might want to go down the path of development or content creation, etc. So I think I would, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't want to put my own money anywhere, because it's all moving so fast. Everything new tools coming to market all the time. It's pretty crazy out there at the moment. But that also means everyone needs to be a little bit cautious and careful. We know about hallucinations. You wouldn't use AI to give advice, without the human oversight of that. You don't want to upload documents into some of these tools without being really clear on the data and security parameters, if you like, that they work to. So, although it's really quite exciting in some ways, I think we've still got to be slightly cautious. But without question, it will become the norm, in the same way using a PC in the office became the norm back in the day. Using AI in the office will become, and is, the norm for many already.
Yeah, it's likened to the .com bubble, isn't it? When the internet went crazy, that, apart from the emergence of social media, it seems to be the next biggest thing, doesn't it? So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Okay, so if I'm a mortgage broker now and I want to start using AI, you've obviously listed your favourite tools, but what are the easiest tools to grasp to start with that's going to help their business?
Okay, so I think a really easy one, an AI tool is one that we use, is called Tactic, Tactiq. We're not affiliated with Tactic whatsoever, and that actually is just a note taker. It's like Otter AI. Other people have seen of these. So, if you think about where the effort is in the advice process, things like fact finding, know your customer, capturing the notes, understanding the requirements of the client, etc. A lot of people are doing video meetings now, but of course you can use, offline recording, recording on your phone, etc. But something like Tactic, it just plugs into Zoom and Google Meet or whatever tool you're using, obviously records it. You can then just summarize with, give me bullet point summary and the actions that come off this, and then just drop that. And actually you can connect it with your CRM, so it automatically populates the record in the CRM if you want it to. So
Nice.
something like that as kind of a quick win. Note taking, using AI to summarize notes, create actions for others, for team members, colleagues, whatever it might be, I think is a really good place to start. And then also obviously the ChatGPT stuff and Claude, the sort of standard, if you've got a question to ask, or you've got a challenge and you've just got to think about it for 10, 15 minutes or whatever it might be, prompt AI first. Ask the
Yeah.
question of ChatGPT, because they will help unpack the answer. They'll help develop that thinking much quicker. So whether it's, I need to develop a security policy for my mortgage broker, or I need to target introducers in my accountants in my area. How should I go about that? That's an initial prompt for ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, etc., and then develop it from there. And then you can turn that and say, "Oh, create me a 6-week plan for developing relationships with estate agents in my area." What
Love that.
are the write me a script for the initial call for trying to get in front of those estate agents. Write me an email. We work with first time buyers to help me reach out to those estate agents, and you can start to think about how this can then develop into saving a lot of time and effort within the business.
And that's exactly what it is. It's all about helping them save time and effort. And I love the idea of if something takes you longer than 10 minutes to think about or plan or develop, start with ChatGPT. As you said, right, let's go away from the mortgage world. If you turn around and said, right, tomorrow I want to start healthy eating, you pop in there, write me a 6-week plan to help me healthy eat. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but it gives you those bases, exactly the same as what John said there. Write me a 6-week plan to introduce myself to estate agents in the local area. And then the scripts. The great thing with ChatGPT is any any AI model is it has so much knowledge. So you could say, write it in the style of a certain celebrity, or if you know somebody that's fantastic at copywriting, write it in the style of, for example, if you're marketing, in the style of Gary Vee or whoever you want to, and it would write it in that style, and it gives you a really, really good basis. So those are a few tools that you can use. I love the idea of the note taker. We use one called Fireflies. There's one called Otter AI. And what I love about these note takers is it takes everything and it puts it into summary of bullet points and any action points that needs to be taken. So if you're on the call and you're speaking to somebody, you can say, right, one of my action points is to send you over this PDF. And the note taker will pick that up and put it as an action point for you. So those tools are really useful. And the great thing with the note taker is you don't even realize you're using AI. It's working in the background. All I did with Fireflies was link it up to my Outlook, and it automatically joins every meeting now and summarizes everything for me, which is so useful.
It works the other way around. So HubSpot now, for example, has AI built into notes, etc., within the CRM. And if you're preparing for a meeting, you literally go to the AI and say, you go into the contact record for the individual, and you can just click prepare for a meeting with this individual. And it aggregates all the contact and any deals that have been done with that individual, any data sitting on the CRM, and prepares for a meeting. Last time you spoke about, the child going off to school, might be worth checking in on that, or they were going on holiday. I mean, it's such a fantastic bit of kit. I mean, it's not just HubSpot that has this; lots of others do as well. But that's where AI is going. It's data and information is its meat and drink. So, wherever you've got a lot of data, a lot of information that you need to aggregate or put clarity around, etc., AI is a great tool to do that. We've talked a lot about content and written content, but, also reporting and analysis of data. We know that mortgage lenders, investment banks, etc., are really leaning into AI for market trends and understanding, how they operate at a macro level, arguably in relation to investment, the investment side of the business, I guess. all of that sort of that big data stuff is absolute meat and drink to AI, and that's where I think we're going to see some interesting developments, particularly in the mortgage sector. And if you think about, I'm sure we're going to come on and talk about the mortgage sector to some extent, but does it impact mortgage brokers? Well, if you think about one of the roles of the mortgage broker is to look at all the data available in relation to plans available, rates, etc., and what's best for the client. AI can do that sort of stuff really well. Can do that really well. And that really puts the focus on mortgage brokers on where the real value is around the relationship with the client. That human relationship, the management of behaviors, the emotional engagement, the ability to ask the right questions, to prompt the right responses, and get the most out of that human relationship with the client.
That leads me perfectly onto the question. Do you think AI is a threat, or how can it help? Will it ever replace mortgage advisors? You've kind of answered it there, but what do you honestly think? Is it going to be a threat, or is it something that can help mortgage brokers take it to the next level?
I think it will absolutely change the way mortgage brokers work, and those that go with it and run with it and adapt and adopt AI will be really successful, continue to be successful, because it's a tool that enhances what they do. They might be able to reach more clients. They might be able to develop propositions that, for clients that they might not wanted to service originally. It might be used to develop and identify more protection opportunities for clients, because it can look at the data and look at the profile of the right sort of client that has a higher propensity to want to or need to have protection policies. So there's a whole load of things. I think absolutely, it will change everything. It's really interesting. I saw the guy, he was the global head of legal for KPMG talking, I think it was last year now, actually said how they're going to have to retrain all their junior lawyers because knowledge-based industries are going to be so impacted by AI. Now, that's not to say the jobs are going to disappear. I think the jobs are going to change. I think there's going to be far more value being able to delivered through individuals, because AI will do a lot of the stuff that actually was just reading reports, assessing reports, looking at data, etc. That sort of stuff will be supported quite considerably by AI. So then it's actually where the real value is, in those human relationships that I talked about earlier.
Yeah, it's great to hear that it's going to be about that human connection with people. And this is what we're talking to people about on social media. It's about getting your face out there. It's about people resonating with you rather than your knowledge, I suppose, almost, because the knowledge will become second to none. We're in a world of information overload, and it's going to be taken to the next level. I heard a great analogy that people were talking about AI in this world was like when tractors first came into the farming world, that so many people said, we can't use tractors, we've got to carry on using horses because it's going to affect our industry. And then when they adopted the tractors, they realized they could do double the work in half the time with less money. And then obviously the farming industry in the UK is completely different now, but it just shows by using the tools correctly, you can increase the output significantly. Yeah. And what you'll never lose, you always need that farmer to drive the tractor, to understand when to harvest, to have the knowledge. But exactly the same as AI, you need to know, a mortgage broker needs to know how to use that information that the AI has pulled. And that will be something for Consumer Duty to look at as well, won't it?
Yeah. And also I heard someone talking about another angle, I guess, in relation to AI. And I think it's a really interesting one to see how it plays out, because there's a lot of concern at the moment around AI, around things like fake news, social media. What can you believe? What is real and isn't real? It can create images, it can create video of people. It can imitate people's voices, and that's a real risk in relation to the financial services sector, in relation to fraud, etc., and scams particularly. But what someone was talking about is when AI becomes the norm, and it is fast becoming the norm, we won't know what's real and what isn't real. And actually, that's a good place to get to, because we'll start to question everything. And if we start to question everything, who do we rely on to, just validate that everything?
Be the expert.
The relationships. trusted
Yeah.
relationship. So, okay, people might be able to, source online mortgage based on their scenario with best rate, etc. But I think they're still going to want that human relation just to validate that. But this idea that we won't know what's real and what isn't, but absolutely that makes us think better about what we're looking at and interpreting, I think is a really powerful place to get to, because actually it feels like if that becomes a new normal, the fake news thing really isn't so much an issue because we just challenge everything ourselves.
And
So
we position people with knowledge and with expertise in an even higher regard than we do at the moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Wow, very
Yeah,
interesting. Love
yeah.
this chat. I could go on for ages, but I know we'll be here for hours. As a thank you, we'd like to donate £10 to a charity of your choice for coming on the podcast, John. Which charity would you like to make the donation to?
That's easy. That's the National Autistic Society. Yeah, and thanks
Okay,
for that.
fantastic. We'll make that donation for you. So if people want to speak to you about AI and they want to talk about HubSwap, which is like a CRM that you specialize in, where's the best place for them to reach you, John?
So either on LinkedIn, and that's John Pittham, JonPittham, or Carmen.digital, www.carmen.digital.
Fantastic. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on. It'd be great to get you on in like 12 months' time, in this
It'll
time
all have
next
changed.
year.
It'll all have
And
changed.
then
Yeah.
and we'll be AI bots chatting to each other. That's what it'll be.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
John, thank you so much. It's been a really interesting chat. Thank you very much for your time. Cheers.
Thanks.